7 Strange True Life Events that Inspired The X-Files. The X-Files may have started as a cult show, but, by the end of its initial 9 seasons, this story of extraterrestrial conspiracies had become a cultural touchstone. This fusion of science fiction, horror, and drama was created by Chris Carter and aired from September 1993 to May 2002. Over its initial run, multiple feature films, spin-offs, and later revival, The X-Files followed Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agents Dana Scully and Fox Mulder as they pursued unsolved and often paranormal cases. The show highlighted public mistrust of governments and large institutions through a Monster of the Week format inspired by The Twilight Zone and Kolchak, The Night Stalker. In reality, of course, there is no secret, paranormal division of the FBI. Though if there were, you would likely never know. However, many of the episodes of this classic television series were rooted in real-world weirdness. The truth really is out there, though it is much stranger than fiction. Season 1, Episode 17, E.B.E. This episode was the first to place the series' mythology front and center. Its title, which is an abbreviation for the extraterrestrial biological entity, refers to the possible smuggling of just such a being in the story's central plot. It does, however, introduce the recurring characters of the lone gunmen, who would become fan favorites for their levity before getting their own spin-off television series. These characters were inspired by 3 real men whom writers Glenn Morgan and Marilyn Osborne met at a UFO convention in June 1993. In particular, the 3 were calling for passers-by to destroy their $10 and $20 bills out of fear of government tracking through magnetic strips. Their odd characters and appearance were the direct inspiration for the lone gunman, but Morgan later wondered whether he should have taken their real-world counterparts' warnings more seriously. Season 1, Episode 24, The Erlenmeyer Flask. In the first season finale, a doctor collapses, but when paramedics attempt to decompress his chest, a poisonous gas seeps out and overwhelms them. Although the X-Files would later reveal that he possessed alien DNA, the real-life basis remains a mystery. In 1994, Gloria Ramirez came to Riverside General Hospital in California complaining of confusion with rapid breathing and a high heart rate. Staff quickly sedated Ramirez and then attempted to defibrillate her, noting that her body had an oily sheen and a fruity odor. When her blood was drawn, a resident noted strange particles in the blood and an ammonia smell. Shortly before, around 20 people fell ill or passed out. Experts theorize that Ramirez, who passed away within a half hour, had been using the degreaser dimethyl sulfoxide as a remedy for cancer pain, which then transformed into the poisonous gas dimethyl sulfate due to the provided oxygen and the electric shock of defibrillation. By the time of her autopsy, though, the body was in such a state that no clear conclusion was possible. Season 2, Episode 3, Blood. This episode follows a crisis resulting from several civilians' exposure to a crop-dusting chemical that inspires violence. In the story, the experimental toxin LSDM is designed to inspire fear in insects but inadvertently causes people to see subliminal messages that exacerbate their phobias. The writers drew on several real-life events, including Glenn Morgan's personal fear of blood and the outcry over the use of the carcinogenic pesticide malathion in Southern California. Another starting point was the U.S. Postal Service shootings from 1986 and 1997, with a starting sequence involving a fictional postal worker. The final sequence with a gunman in a tower directly parallels Charles Whitman's shooting of nearly 40 people at the University of Texas in 1966. Whitman even journaled about invasive thoughts entering his mind, though an autopsy revealed a brain tumor as the likely culprit. Season 2, Episode 13, Irresistible. This heavily praised episode was one of the first with little to no paranormal story elements. It follows seemingly normal Minneapolis mortuary worker Donnie Pfaster. He is quickly revealed to be both a death fetishist who collects hair and fingernails and a serial killer in the tradition of Jeffrey Dahmer. Chris Carter has specifically cited Dahmer as the inspiration for this character because his murders included cannibalism and necrophilia, alongside the desecration of victims' bodies. Although Fox nixed an initial script that had included necrophilia, the episode shows Pastor as appearing in the shadows and shape-shifting in front of Scully. This echoes reports from some of Dahmer's victims that he could change his visage while holding them captive, and further documents the eerie realities of such twisted individuals. Season 4, Episode 2, Home. This episode was originally hailed as one of the most brutal in the X-Files history, and its reputation has continued through today. The story focuses on a family of inbred brothers who violently defend their way of life when accused of murdering an infant found buried on their property. The Peacock's real-life basis was the wards of Syracuse, New York. In 1990, William Ward was found dead in a dilapidated house he shared with his brothers. Police quickly assumed that the youngest brother, Delbert, was to blame, but he was quickly acquitted when the public discovered that he was illiterate and could not have signed any official confession. However, the story has a stronger grounding in an account by Charlie Chaplin of meeting a family living in an English tenement. He specifically tells us how he met a young man with no legs and an oversized, flat, and sunken head who was kept under a bed. Although Chaplin's story is about a family making the best of their situation and caring for their son, Home goes a far darker route and was originally banned from rebroadcasting. Season 4, Episode 4, En route. This episode continues the X-Files history of illustrating the chaotic mental state of serial killers with the case of a murderer whose fantasies are so dark that they develop on film. The title even references this theme, as it translates from the German as unrest or anxiety. In this story, the first sign of trouble arises when a desk clerk discovers photos on a freshly developed film roll that show a recently kidnapped woman screaming. Writer Vince Gilligan specifically drew on the case of mass murderer Howard Unruh, who took a walk of death and shot and killed 13 of his friends and neighbors in 1949. He also references the work of Ted Serios, a photographer in the 1960s who claimed that he could capture thoughts on the undeveloped film. Combining the two allows the episode to comment on the sick vision of such killers, whose actions leave very real stains on our world. Season 4, Episode 5, The Field Where I Died. In one of the clearest references to real-world events, this episode shows Mulder and Scully investigating a cult modeled on the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. In this case, they are called the Temple of the Seven Stars, and the FBI believes that they may be hiding a dangerous cache of weapons. The leader of this Tennessee-based cult, Vernon Ephesian, is also clearly modeled on the Branch Davidians' leader, David Koresh, alias Vernon Howell. However, the finale recalls less the 1993 siege in Waco, Texas, and more so the Jonestown Massacre of 1978. In the latter case, leader Jim Jones called for all 918 people in this Guyana settlement to consume cyanide and Valium-laced punch. Similarly, the episode ends with every member of the Seven Stars dead, having all drunk the Kool-Aid. The X-Files has left a strong legacy, even as it continues with the 2016 revival of this classic television series. The initial run inspired a wide range of similar stories with complex mythologies, including Lost, Dark Skies, Fringe, and Supernatural. Furthermore, Scully's position as the no-nonsense scientist helped transform how women on television were written and perceived, making the case for more substantial roles for women in TV, film, video games, and otherwise. It has become a staple of American and international popular culture and continues to evolve, inspired by the weirdness of the world that surrounds us.